Make sure you check out our online store where we work with our graphic designer to create stunning garment and product designs that feature a wide variety of aircraft types such as British fighters, World War II aircraft, American bombers, Russian fighters, and much more. You can pick your favourite designs and personalise any items within our Redbubble store that range from clothing right the way through to stationery. All of our designs feature our logo, so you can show your support for the channel while getting a quality product. You can head to our website aircrewinterview.tv and click store, or go to redbubble.com/people/AC interview. Thank you and enjoy.
Yeah, so the Apache, when I went through in December of 1991, I was intimidated at first, obviously. I'm thinking, wow, this is it. I didn't think anybody got to fly the Apache until they had thousands of hours, in helicopters and all that sort of stuff. But here I was, right back at Fort Rucker, Alabama. And that's when I learned, like I said before, all of the safety engineering that they put into the Apache helicopter that they learned from the mistakes in the Cobra. So the Apache actually, the rotor head itself was a fully articulated rotor head, so you could go negative with it. Actually, it's got a negative 1.5 G, negative half G limit. I can tell you from experience, it'll go a lot more than that, but it will go negative half a G is the limit what the Dash 10 says. Mm-hmm. Obviously, 2 engines instead of 1. Both engines, actually, it'll fly on 1 engine. Pretty much, it depends on the weight, density, altitude, and all that sort of stuff. But it'll pretty much, in forward flight, it'll fly on 1 engine, no problem whatsoever. The fuel system was made ballistic tolerant, crash worthy. And I say this, that the engine, the pumps to feed fuel to the engine are suction pumps. So if one of the fuel lines gets a bullet hole in it, it'll suck air and the engine will just flame out. So you won't be as opposed to the Cobra had a fuel pump in the tank that would push the fuel up to the engine, and if the fuel line got a hole in it, it would just be pumping fuel all over the place, and you could catch fire. The fuel cells in the Apache, 2 of them, they're ballistically tolerant to 50 caliber high explosive incendiary round. They'll self-seal up to 50 cal high explosive incendiary round. So get a 50 cal round, 51 cal round if it's Soviet. That's a tracer round, so to speak. If it punches through the fuel cell, it'll self-seal. And also, as you're using the fuel, the ullage that it creates is there's a nitrogen inertia unit that actually fills that void with nitrogen as opposed to air. So there's lessens the chance of there being a fire if there's no oxygen in there. So that's the stuff with the and then the fuel cells are actually, it'll take up to about 100 G impact before it'll actually bust.
Christ.
So yeah, the fuel cells actually were a very stiff Kevlar, kind of a Kevlar material. If you took all the fuel, if you took it out of the helicopter and put it on the ground, you could actually kind of squish it. It was like a bag as opposed to a hard fuel cell. Mm-hmm. And then, so that's the fuel system. The oil system was the same. The oil system is built, the tank and everything is built into the engine, as opposed to the Cobra. It had a separate oil tank. So if you had a bullet hole in the oil tank, you're going to lose all the oil. Yeah. Where the Apache, if you get a bullet hole in the oil tank, you're getting a bullet hole in the engine. So it's probably going to quit anyway. Each engine is in its own stainless steel box, so to speak. Each engine nacelle is separate from the aircraft, to where if there was a fire in the engine, pull the fire handles and it'll close off the vents and shut off the fuel at the firewall, and then you can blow the halon into the engine compartment, and then everything will go out the back of the the exhaust here on the Apache. So and then it'll fly on 1 engine, like I said. All the gearboxes were designed to fly without oil for, I think it's 30 minutes. And actually that happened to one of our guys there in Afghanistan. But And actually, the gearboxes, the tail rotor gearboxes, are not oil. They don't have oil in them. They're grease, and so that's how it can fly without, so to speak, without oil. If all the grease was to fall out of it, or I'll say, it took a bullet hole to the tail rotor gearbox, and all the grease was to flow out, there were wicks on the bearings that would hold enough grease to let it fly for 30 minutes without any grease. Same thing with the transmission. Actually, it'll fly, but the transmission actually has oil. It's just it'll fly without oil for at least 30 minutes. At least that's as far as they tested it. I wouldn't want to try it any further than that.
No,
and actually, it was used in Operation Anaconda. I think one of the Apaches, he actually lost oil in his transmission. They ended up flying it back, to a safe spot before they landed. So, yeah, so that's all that. Now, the other big thing about the big thing about the Apache is that in a vertical impact on a crash, the gun, it really doesn't show here, but the gun has a chute that goes between the front and the back seat. So the gun will actually go in between the front and the back seat. If you were to hit with forward airspeed, the gun could actually break off and just break off on the bottom. The both seats will collapse. Both seats will, in a controlled way, they can collapse, absorbing more vertical G impact, Gs. So the other thing is the gear, the landing gear itself, it will fold up also. It's on huge shocks, but it's also got shear rings so that the gear will actually collapse as you're going down. The gear will actually collapse up into the or on the sides of the helicopter, and then you've got the wing stores and all. That'll also absorb some of the impact when it hits the ground. So the gear will stroke. The wings will stroke, the gun will either break away or go between the seats, and then, like I said, the fuel cells are rated up to 100 Gs, and with all that, what they told us, if you were to hit with a 50 G vertical impact, by the time everything stroked, everything did what it was supposed to do, you're talking about 10 Gs on your back. So you'll have back problems, but you'll be alive. And I'm telling you, just about every crash that I have seen in the Apache, if it wasn't a guaranteed fatal when say driving straight into the ground, one, they did not catch fire, and two, the guys that were riding it were pretty much, there's a few that were hurt pretty bad, but one of them is actually pretty in decent shape to have a normal life, so to speak. But whereas back in the Cobra days, there's no way they could have survived on some of those crashes and all.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's a lot of the stuff. Walking up to it the first time, if you ever get the chance to, they are unbelievably huge.
Yeah.
They're very, very big, and that's when I thought the first time I walked up, like, wow, this thing is big. But it's extremely maneuverable. It'll roll, it'll loop, it'll do some good hard turns, pull some Gs. If you do it right, with enough power in the bucket speed is what we call it. You can pull up a good 4 Gs and all, and all. So, and like I said, on the negative side, I know from combat, I've had it up to 1.5 negative Gs. The only bad thing about that is you get everything that's on the floorboard comes to the ceiling. All the dirt, the gum, the trash comes to the ceiling. If it's not tied down, it's coming up. Yeah. So flying the Apache the first time, day VFR was absolutely unbelievable. The power that you had, how smooth it was, it just sounded like a Ferrari. I mean, it just sounded, just powerful, smooth, extremely well handling. All that was great until we got into the night vision system portion of it, which was, we called it the bag. For safety reasons, the instructor pilot would be in the front seat, I would be in the back seat, but the back seat, the entire back cockpit is covered, all the windows are covered, and that's what they call the bag. So that you cannot see outside. The only way you can see outside is with the night vision system. The monocle that goes over your right eye, that is hooked up to that's hooked up to the very front right
Yeah.
here, the pilot's night vision system, which is infrared. So all you see on this, all you can see in the bag is what's inside the cockpit, your instrumentation and all that sort of stuff. And the only thing you see outside is what's night vision system. Now, since it's FLIR, you can see that, the FLIR works during the daytime. It always works because it runs off heat. It doesn't run like night vision goggles off of light amplification. So that's where we, start flying the bag. And it sucks. It's everything you can think
awful.
of. It is. It's absolutely awful. It's absolutely awful. You have to understand that, one, when you look right and left as like a normal person, or you look left and right before you look left and right with your eyes, you're doing that instantaneously. But the night vision system, the motors can only move so fast. So getting used to it, when I would want to look hard, to the left to see something, one, you got to move your head. You can't just look to the left. You have to move your head to the left. And getting used to it, you have to move your head to the left consciously, as opposed to just snapping your head over. Because you snap your head over, your mind tells you, yeah, my head just looked left, but the camera is still trying to catch up. So everything's coming around to looking to the left, like, wow. And you look back to the right, and it slowly comes back to the right and all. So it's disorienting doing that. Now, once you get used to that, they would give us training where we would hover, and we would hover sideways down the center line of the runway. Now, your eye is up here about 10 feet forward and about 4 feet down from where you're at in the back seat. So if the center line is right here on the runway, and you're going to be hovering this way down the runway, you're looking here. So your right eye sees this edge of the runway.
Oh, yeah.
Your left eye, and this is at night, obviously, with naked eye, you can see the center line with your left eye. Yeah. And so that's all fine and dandy. Now you switch it around, and now your left eye sees the center line, and your right eye, it's swapped over, sees the edge of the runway flying down sideways. And but anyway, that's all a bunch of exercises, so to speak, that we did to just get you used to flying the night vision system. Once you finally got past about 150 hours of flying in the night vision system, then you could finally say, I'm used to it. But a very, very perishable skill. You had to fly night vision system, I would say at least once a week, at least 3 hours once a week, to stay good with it and all. Very, very, whatever. So that was flying the Apache. That was just learning to fly the Apache. And then when we finally got to shooting all the weapons, just like the Cobra, that was a kick in the pants. The biggest difference with the Apache is instead of the 7.62 minigun or the 20 millimeter 3-barreled Gatling gun, with the chunker, or the tow missiles, which are, tube-launched, optically sighted, wire-guided missile. The Apache had laser-guided missiles. So you would, on the front seat, just like the Cobra, the front seat controls all the systems. With the Apache, it has actually 3 vision systems. One was a direct view optics, which was actually just like looking through binoculars. And but you could only see that through the eyepiece. And so and that way you could tell colors. Because the other one was the day television camera. And you really can't get good colors with the day television camera. So if you were trying to identify something, says, oh yeah, ground guys told us it's a light blue truck, something like that.
Yeah.
You really couldn't tell it on the day TV camera. You could with the direct view optics. Then you had infrared, the FLIR, with that third system on there. Then you had all the stuff that works with shooting laser-guided missiles. But the bigger deal was shooting the 30 millimeter high explosive dual purpose bullets with the Apache. This is an actual one here. It actually says Well, I don't even know if it would even focus in, but it says HEDP. I don't know if you could see that on there, but
you got it. Yeah.
there you go. And so this is an actual shell of one. This is the size of 30 millimeter. The real ones actually explode. The real ones actually will punch through about 4 inches of steel and will actually punch through 4 inches of steel and have about a 5 meter kill radius. So you're basically shooting hand grenades out there with a shaped charge that'll punch through 4 inches of steel. Normally, we shoot them 10 round bursts. Just like the Cobra, the Apache, wherever you look, the gun slews with you. Shooting on that. It was designed for the 30 millimeter gun, so you still feel it in the helicopter, but it's definitely a lot tamer, or it's dampened out a lot more than the Cobra, and also. But yeah, every round that comes out, it's just a boom, 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 boom. You can, you can feel it in your body. You know, all the rounds coming out.
Can you smell it as well in the cockpit?
Oh yeah, the smell of it's the smell of victory. I don't know how else you call it. It's the smell of victory. It'll shoot out to about 4,000 meters.
Yeah.
And like I said, 625 rounds per minute, plus or minus 25 rounds, and 10 round bursts is how we do it. The other thing that we got to shoot were obviously the rockets, just like the Cobra. We got to shoot flechettes, and here's the actual nose cone to a rocket. This right here is called the umbilical. A real one would have a, I don't know if that's actually, but it would have a little plug on here that would, you plug it into each rocket tube inside the rocket pod has its corresponding hole. They would wrap this around, plug it in the hole for it, and then inside the cockpit, let's just say if I'm shooting flechettes, and the bad guys were, say, 3,000 meters away, I would obviously squirt the laser, get the range, feeds into the fire control computer. It says, like, all right, you're shooting a flechette, so I got to release the ordnance, which is this, and I don't know how that will, let me see if I can get out of the way. Is that holding
like
up?
A golf tee, almost.
Yeah, it's a 2-inch hardened steel nail. Punch through an inch of steel and whatever else you happen to be holding while it hits you. But as the fire control computer will tell this rocket, you need to go out 3,750 meters, 2,750 meters, and then blow the front out and shoot the payload, all the flechettes out, to where at 3,000 meters, where the bad guys are, you'll have pretty much a perfectly 30-meter cylinder of 1,900 flechettes coming at you. Now we fire those in pairs, so you're going to have, almost 4,000 flechettes coming at you.
You don't want to be in the way of that.
Yeah, so the guys really loved it. I said the guys in Afghanistan, the ground guys loved it because, the other things that we love shooting were the high explosive rockets. Typical, when they hit, they explode. But they cannot find any good intelligence from the guys that we killed. If we shot them with the flechettes, what normally was saved were maps. Maybe sometimes cameras were saved, but maps and pretty much the identification of the guys that we just killed. Whereas if you hit them with a high explosive rocket, everything's pretty much gone. So that's why they loved us shooting flechettes, and we love shooting flechettes, especially at night. With night vision goggles at night, you shoot off flechettes, and they're in Afghanistan. I mean, all of them bouncing off the rockets, sparking and everywhere. It's like a bunch of sparklers, all out there bouncing off the rocks and everything. And then we got,
Oh, sorry, Dan. I was just going to say, you mentioned Afghanistan there, but when did you get deployed to Afghanistan? Like, what year was that for you and your squadron?
Yeah, I was deployed to Afghanistan in the year 2006. I was mobilized 2005, but showed up there January 2006, and we left there right at the beginning of February 2007. And 1 year. I was mainly based out of Bagram and Jalalabad, which was they called the Northeast Sector. So I was up around the Khyber Pass and mainly up all north up in that where the Korengal Valley, which is where we did a lot of fighting there. And then Wanat, which was Kop Keating, we helped put that in up at the Gaudash. We went so far north, holy mackerel. I mean, the mountains were up to 18,000 feet around us up there. So, yeah, that was a hell of a fight up there. Our average fight in Afghanistan was around 8,000 feet above sea level. So even the Apache has a hard time. Yeah, there's not enough Bernoullis up at that altitude to, for the blades to bite into. The engines were not so bad, but yeah, there's just not enough Bernoullis to really pull a lot of G's and stuff. So wild times while I was there. Took a lot of pictures,
share a few
videos.
Stories for us, maybe like
Yeah.
kind of
Well, it's kind of funny you say that because I've got a bunch. We did a lot of shooting when we were there. One that particularly stands out, one of the first ones that I was in the Korengal Valley, and this was in May, and we'd already been getting into a lot of shootings in the Korengal Valley, so pretty much it's about a 4 or 5 mile box canyon that you come in from the north off the Pesh River Valley, and then the base of it was around 4,000 feet above sea level. I'm gonna say 4,000 or 5,000 feet above sea level, and then the mountains on both sides and at the end were touching 12,000 feet, and it was no more than about, I'm not gonna say 2 miles wide. So it's a pretty steep climb coming out of there if you wanted to go out anywhere to the south or other than coming in from the north and all. But we kept getting shot at coming in to the Korengal outpost. We were not allowed to land there. The Chinooks were, obviously they had to land there. And finally the captain that morning that on this mission, he said, like, you know what, we're gonna, sick and tired of getting shot at coming in and out of the Korengal, so we're going to go out the south end. And I was kind of concerned. I'm like, it's already in May. It's already getting hot. We're going to have a hard time climbing out the south end, just power-wise, with us, for the Apache. So he said, well, we're gonna do this just to show them that it can't be done. And we're like, wow, that's a hell of a way to fight a war. So we go in there on the first one. The Chinook lands. I'm circling above. We do not land as Apaches because, one, there's no need to, but two, yeah, to have an Apache on the ground there, it's just a prime target for the Taliban to start opening fire. He takes off to the south. I take off behind him, and as we're getting up to the saddle that we're going to cross, I'm like, wow, man, we're going to be crossing it very, very low to the trees. And I'm talking like right across the tops of the trees. And I said, you know what, that'd be a perfect spot to have an ambush. So I ended up, I said, hey, you want me to put off a couple of rockets in that tree line ahead of us and, just go ahead and, in case anybody's there, put their heads down. And so, the Chinook guys are like, hell yeah. So they tell everybody in the back, hey, the Apache's about to get next to us and he's going to shoot off a bunch of rockets in front of us and all. So I'm like, whatever. And so we get up next to him, and fire off a couple of white phosphorus and all in there, and he's like, oh man, that's cool. So go off the back end, just come driving out of there, 180 knots. Go back, pick up the next round. Same thing, go back to the Korengal outpost, and this time though, I just topped off with gas, and it gotten hotter, and so when the Chinook was about to take off, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna just climb above him at least another 500 feet just to get a head start. And so when he's taking off to the south again, I'm staying with him, but I'm above him, and I'm thinking, you know what, we're not going to make it this time. It doesn't feel that way. So I said, I'm going to hug this rock wall on the right side coming up on the saddle, and I'm going to try and catch some thermals to help me get over the ridge, over the saddle, over the ridge line and all. So I get on the right side of the Chinook, back behind him about maybe about 100, 150 meters, and sure enough, as we're climbing on up, the next thing I see is I tell my lieutenant in the front seat, I'm like, man, here we're stuck. I can pull in no more power. I can't turn to the right. I can't turn to the left because the Chinook's there. I don't want to get in his downwash. And I just hope we make it. And right about then, I see smoke coming off the tail end of the, I see smoke coming off the tail gunner that was sitting on the back of the Chinook. And I'm like, wow. And I was just about to squeeze, the radio and tell the Chinook, like, hey, man, you got smoke coming off your Chinook. And right about then, I see the red tracers going off to my right. And I'm like, holy mackerel. I look to the right on that rock wall there, just on the bottom of it, was a bunch of Taliban were shooting at him. And they're all just blasting. And I'm going to say at least 10. I see them, and they're just exchanging gunfire back and forth as we're coming up on them. And I'm like, oh, crap. So I waz up the gun real quick. I look over to the right at them, and right about that time, the Taliban, they were looking at the, shooting at the Chinook. They kind of looked back at me, going like, "Oh, Habib, there's a Chinook, there's an Apache," yeah. And I'm even closer. Now I'm saying I'm maybe 50 meters away from that rock wall, and I could see them. I could see their band dress. I could see their teeth and all that. They swing their their AKs at me, and they're just hammering away. They're shooting at me. Squeeze the trigger with the 30 millimeter, put off a 10-round burst, and the first burst hits towards the left side of the group, and pretty much I see one of the guys. Pretty much I hit him. I say right around the lower part of the chest. I say this because the top part of his body blew up, kind of popped up in the air. I thought, that's kind of weird, and you're saying all this. It's all happening in slow motion, and shoot the first burst. I'm like, damn it, need to move the gun back to the right a little bit. Then I see the puff, quick flash, and here's an RPG, and it's coming right at. The guy did it perfect. He shot in front of me.
Yeah.
And so he led me perfect. The problem was he didn't adjust for my climb. So it came like right up underneath my seat. Went off to the left, exploded about 25 meters or so off my left side. And I'm going, damn it, it's a RPG. And look back to the right, squeeze another burst again, squeeze another burst again. And by this time we're flying past them. And then squeeze, and nothing's coming out. I'm like, damn it, nothing's coming out. Squeezing, get over the ridge line and pop off the back end. And by this time, my co-pilot's going like, where? And he had taken the gun away from me, and that's why my gun didn't shoot anymore. He wazzed it up, weapon action switched it up, and took it away from me. And so as we go over off the other end, I'm going, stop. Stop, right then, the Chinook calls back saying, yeah, they've got several wounded in the back of their Chinook, and I'm like, damn it. So now we're driving down, that back valley there, and I'm telling them, like, don't ever take the gun. If you don't know what I'm shooting at, don't take the gun. Right. And damn it, now we got wounded on that, so nobody was killed on our side. It was interesting because I found out later, now I'm talking way later in the year, I think it was around October, we were weathered in at a Special Forces A camp near that area. And when I was walking through there looking at their maps, and sure enough, on that map was the Korengal Valley, and they had all these little Post-it notes saying how they had all the different intel on the spots. And right there at that one spot in May, it's the last known whereabouts of Ahmad Shah. That was the one that went after on Operation Red Wings on Lone Survivor. Mm-hmm. That's who they were going after, was Ahmad Shah. And that's what I'd said too. I said, like, normally when we pass any Taliban, they don't shoot at us, they hide. While these guys shot at us with as much as they did, that explained a lot that was probably Ahmad Shah that I was shooting at that day, that they were making it out of that valley. So that was an interesting fight. And then I came home for R&R right after, for 2 weeks of R&R. And I tell you what, I was still wound up after that little fight.
Imagine, yeah.
A bunch of other fights after that also. It was a bunch of fights for the rest of the year. Just, rescued a convoy there in the Tagab Valley. In my movie, we ended up putting in the last gun battle that I had there in the Korengal Valley, that escorting a one-star general in there, and it came under attack, and I didn't have any bullets. It was wild times there. So
Absolutely, and I'm sure we're going to have to get you back on because there's so many stories. But before we wrap up the Apache part of this interview and get into the more personal and talk about your books and obviously being a producer on a documentary, you also had a crash in an Apache. Am I correct saying that there, Daniel?
yeah, yes. So in 1995, actually March 6, 1995. It's interesting how you can remember that. It was a Monday night. Flying on the reserves, flying the Apache. It had a flight control malfunction. The helicopter essentially did its own thing. And I say did its own thing. It is a fly-by-wire helicopter, the Apache is. The flight control computer and the stabilization computer basically had a fight. And what came out of the fight was uncommanded tail rotor controller control inputs. So the helicopter basically it pivoted hard on the yaw axis, and it pivoted so hard on the to the left or the power pedal that it bled the main rotor off, and we ended up hitting the ground kind of sideways. A lot of things went my way. A lot of things went my way in the crash. The first time we hit was the blades. We hit to the right side, so the blades were on their upswing when they went across the canopy the first time. But they still, and I say this because it didn't come through the cockpit with me. It didn't take my head off. Obviously, it didn't. And then the gear did stroke, the seats did stroke, just like it was supposed to. But it was a flight control problem that actually, after the crash and after the investigation and everything, they kind of said like, oh, hey, by the way, for all the Apache community, we've had a rash of uncommanded flight control inputs with this serial number of heading attitude reference system, HARS computers. If you have this problem and if you survive, then fill out this questionnaire as to where all the switches were, your flight regime, and all that sort of stuff, and all. So it was already a known problem. They were just, I wouldn't say in the infancy of trying to saying like what's going on. They already knew it was happening. This is mine. I think I was one of the first crashes that they said like, oh yeah, we've got it here. Here's the computer. Everything wasn't destroyed in the crash.
Wow.
So yeah, that was. Come to find out years later, actually, about a year ago now, I did get a traumatic brain injury from that, TBI, and that was actually the start of PTSD that I eventually got diagnosed with. And I say this just over a year ago is when all this came out, but when it happened at the first time, they're saying, "All right, man. There's no bones sticking out. There's no blood. Get back to work."
Get on with it.
There was, just get back to work. You owe us.
Come on.
You owe us $20 million for one helicopter, and so yeah, it. And I say I kind of knew all this over the years because things just weren't right.
Got you.
And things really came out in Afghanistan. In combat, the TBI and the the PTS really came out there. And even then, I was like, yeah, something's just not right. And that's along with, I was flying for Customs and Border Protection, flying the jet and the helicopter for them. And it'd come out a couple of times on that, incidences of like, ooh, this is not right. I think
whether like people like it or not, but once you get kind of like a label on something, you can work to a solution or a management scheme to it, which is great. But you're here with us, which is great, and you seem good at the moment, Daniel. But
yeah, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong.
But how long did you spend on the Apache?
I only got to fly for 20 years. 20 years and about 2,300 hours in the Apache.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it was. I miss it. I miss it. Got to actually, when I got back from Afghanistan, I flew the Alpha model Apache in Afghanistan, which, as everybody said, that was the Corvette or the Ferrari, because we had the Charlie Delta model engines, and we were still 1,000 pounds lighter than the longbows that had been going out there.
Oh, wow.
So ended up going to the longbow course. I want to say it was 2009. Yeah, 2008 or 9. Got to go to the longbow course. Really, the only differences on that was a Freon air conditioner system instead of an air cycle machine. So it worked all the time. And then the other thing was pretty much most of the switches were replaced with electronic push buttons, the multifunction display, and that's what they really replaced on that. And then adding a tactical situation display on it. It was a stick map. It wasn't a full-on graphical map like the later block models had on the longbow, but it was still good.
So I've got a couple of questions from our patrons, if you're happy to answer them before we get into the personal side here, Daniel. Right, so this is from Noel Rodriguez. Can Daniel describe any air-to-air BFM training he has done, whether it's dissimilar air combat training against other attack helicopters or fast movers / jets?
No. The Apache originally had... they wanted to design it with Sidewinder missiles or Stinger missiles on the wing ends of the wingtips, but it was just added too much complexity back then, and they decided let the Air Force Navy fast movers take care of the sky. I did go up against an A-10 in the simulator in Arizona before we mobilized, and I turned in on him, and it was fun. I did shoot him. He did end up coming around shooting me, but that's the only time. We never really, the only, BFM training that they gave us was that if you could see a fast mover coming at us, turn into him and dive down and try to get underneath him. That way he could only get to a point where he can't dive anymore without hitting the ground and all, but that's really the only tactics that they ever taught us on that.
Well, hopefully that's answered that one for you, Noel. And the last one is from Alexander. Was there something in the old Cobra he missed in the Apache system's capability or something else?
Yeah, the minigun was a blast. The minigun was a blast, and the air conditioner blowing through the seat. But and the chunker, that was a blast too. But everything else, no, definitely the Apache. But that's the only stuff that I liked about the Cobra.
Brilliant.
And the nostalgia of it, it's kind of like putting, flying the P-51 Mustang. Everybody would love to do that and shoot it, but I'd rather go into combat in an F-16 or F-18 or F-22.
Well, thanks for answering that for Alexander. From me, obviously you've wrote some books and also a producer on a documentary as well. Can you tell us about this, Daniel?
Yeah. So when I came back, when I was there, I wrote a lot, as much as I could. My logbook, and I wrote a bunch of emails to my, to family and friends and such. And when I came back, the girl that helped me write it here, Sandra, she had read all of my emails and stuff I was sending back to the family and friends, and she suggested I write a book. But I wrote it mainly to give something to my kids, family and kids. When they grow up, 100 years from now, they can say, hey, what did, Dad do in the Great War on Terror? And there it is. It ended up being a #1 bestseller when it came out. Yes. And from all that over the years, and I'd filmed about 25 hours of my own videos with my own video camera and such. And with that, we ended up making, let's see, there we go, the film called Above the Best. And it is... I found out this new term. It's called immersive narrative documentary. And it uses all real footage from what I took in the air in the fights that I was in, and the guys on the ground that I was supporting. They took some video and pictures from the same battle from the ground. So you get the same battle, but from two perspectives. And it's got all the radio, the actual radio traffic that I put on it. The guys on the ground, same thing. It's got all their actual talking and all that. None of this is gun camera footage. It's all real stuff that I took with my camera and all. But and it's actually the battles that are in the book. It's the real stuff. And so both of those are available on Amazon. Yeah, so the website that I can be reached at, well, I'll say reached at, yeah, is danielsouthofheaven.com, all one word. And yeah, you can just find some more information on that.
Yeah, definitely. I'll link it all in the description below, folks, so you can go and check it out, purchase the book and the documentary. But a couple of personal ones to wrap up here from me, Daniel.
Yeah.
Do you have any hobbies?
Yeah, I like snowboarding. Actually, I'm fixing to hopefully go do it here in about another week or so. And then just kind of chill and relax. Fly fishing here and there. That's a good way to pass the time.
Sounds good. Sounds good. This could be I'm going to guess. I've got it in my head. Favorite aircraft you have flown?
Yeah, it's going to be the Apache. It's still, yeah, first love and all that. And yeah, it's definitely the Apache. Now, I would still love to, fly an F-16 or an F-18. Yeah, an F-22 if it was a real fight, whatever. But the F-16, F-18 would be, you're still flying the aircraft. The F-22 is just so advanced. It takes the fun out of fun out of it, I think.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Because my next question was going to be a favorite aircraft, an aircraft you would like to fly. But let's put it as like past or present. So, what would you like to fly? I'm going to keep it, let's say, in the helicopter realm, and then also just anything. So, 2 answers here.
In the helicopter realm, yeah, wow. I would say maybe an AH-6, with the Task Force 160th. Yeah. One of those, shoot one of those guys. But I've flown an OH-6, and it's a nice little helicopter.
Best, haven't you? So
yeah, and there's not too many older aircraft or helicopters I'd like to fly. Older aircraft, yeah, P-51 Mustang or F-4U Corsair. Yeah, no, I wouldn't mind doing that. That would be fun.
That would definitely be fun, yeah. But yeah, Daniel, so one last time, can we find you online? Are you on social media, Instagram, Twitter, or anything else? Or if you can just remind us of where to find that DVD again, that'd be great.
Yeah, both the book and the DVD are available on Amazon, iTunes also, and Hulu for the movie. I'm on Facebook and Daniel Flores, and on Above the Best, and that's the other movie that not Above the Best, Apache Warrior. I helped do that movie also, but Above the Best on that. And then danielsouthofheaven.com, all one word. That's the website for myself and the book and all that.
Brilliant stuff. Again, guys, I'll link that in the description below. But Daniel, a pleasure talking to you and having you on the show. It's been great hearing a bit about your story. And again, I'm sure we're going to get you back on because I want to prod you a bit more here, for another interview. But thanks very much, mate.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.